This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 388 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about a dramatic 3-2 stoppage time win against TSG Hoffenheim, the UEFA Champions League group draw, and of course we will discuss Borussia Dortmund's transfer window of this summer. Yay! For all that and more joins me Lewis Ambrose. Hello Lewis, it's great to have you back on the show. Long-time listeners will hopefully still remember you at LGA Bros on Twitter. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Very long time listeners. It's been ages since we spoke. I'm sorry, that's mostly my fault, I think.
Yes, definitely. Who else would it be? So you have to 100% carry all the conversation and interaction between us. This would never be my fault at all.
Well, then I am very, very sorry.
Well, don't be. In the meantime, we have a sponsor for this episode.
Wir sind komplett schuldenfrei. Wir zahlen keinen einzigen Euro an Zinsen.
And this episode is sponsored once again by the Borussia Dortmund Fan Club London podcast for the Borussia Dortmund perspective from the island that can be found at mcfadgen.podbean.com. They recently interviewed Sunday Olise, so check that out, old Dortmund legend. And of course, if you want to sponsor an episode, get a shout out or whatnot for your fan club or, yourself, Twitter account, who knows, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for more information. But now, Lewis, I think it is time to talk about this.
Marco Reus. Haaland stays on his feet. What a chance for Wolf! Lukaku! Haaland! He's a cheat code! 3-2!
Yeah, that was great. And Lewis, you were in the stadium. I'm very jealous or envious. I don't know what's the right word here, but I'm sure someone will correct me. Lewis, you obviously are also from the UK. You're from London, but you live in Berlin and you got tickets. I actually got asked today by someone how to get a ticket. Maybe first, before we talk about the game, what do you have to do to go to a Dortmund game these days, where I think the capacity is kept at 25,000?
Yeah, so the capacity at the moment is 25,000. As you know, the Ultras aren't going to the games. A lot of fans, I think it's a bit of speculation on my part, but a lot of fans, season ticket holders, are choosing not to go to games as long as there's no full stadium. Obviously, season ticket holders from the Südtribüne are also used to standing, and at the moment there's no standing in German stadiums, so the tickets are more expensive than they usually would have to pay. And the atmosphere obviously isn't quite the same with what in Dortmund, less than half the stadium full. And on top of that, you have to have had both of your vaccine jabs, so you need to be fully vaccinated and have the 2 weeks passed after the second vaccination, or recovered from coronavirus before you can go to a game. So there's already a bunch of people either disinclined to take up their option to have a ticket for the games at the moment, or just not eligible, I guess. So at the moment, season ticket holders get offered the first opportunity to collect, I guess, or apply to have one of the 25,000 tickets. I think season ticket holders can actually apply for multiple tickets. Then it goes to club members, and then both of the Bundesliga home matches so far for Dortmund actually went on general sale, which is something that hasn't happened before the pandemic for years, that I know of in Dortmund for Bundesliga games. So I think that happened against Frankfurt as well, that it went on general sale and then sold out pretty quickly. That's what happened again here. We got tickets thanks to a season ticket of a friend, and yeah, so that's how we got tickets. But as members, we also could have picked up a couple of tickets a few days later. And then I think the general sale only started on Wednesday and the game was on Friday night. So obviously it's really short notice for people to try and organize. I mean, if you don't live in the area, then it's probably really hard by then to make sure you can travel all the way to Dortmund, and maybe even you need to get a hotel overnight for an evening game. So at the moment, tickets are kind of easier to get than they usually would be, but it's all kind of short notice and you have to scramble around for trains and hotels and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so obviously these tickets are personalized, so you can't just walk up to a scalper randomly and buy your ticket.
Actually,
$60,
no.
right?
No, our tickets weren't personalized.
Oh, they were not?
Interestingly.
Huh.
No, I think to my knowledge they were personalized for the Frankfurt game. With things like, name, I think address as well, and maybe date of birth. So, you had to take a piece of ID for the Frankfurt match. But the game against Hoffenheim, I don't know if they've changed the policy or not, but the tickets weren't personalized. So even though we had to be vaccinated, someone at the stadium would, in here in Germany, you have a QR code on your phone, like they call it kind of a vaccine passport, I guess. And
yeah,
you can
that's
have that
socialism in the
on
United States. We can't have that.
Yeah. So in Germany, we have that you can get it on a few different apps on your phone, pretty much. And there were a bunch of stewards outside the stadium, and also in the middle of the city, in the different fan shops. And if you just told somebody that you were going to the game, then you were given and then you showed them that you were vaccinated with your ID as well. So they knew it was definitely you and you didn't just have somebody else's phone or something. Then they gave you a little wristband, kind of like a paper wristband, like you get sometimes when you go to a concert and that kind of thing. So we got these wristbands that said, Borussia Dortmund BVBTSG Hoffenheim and the date, on them, and then you can't get in the stadium without having the wristband on.
Okay, yeah,
and the match
that's interesting. I just wanted to know how the process of actually getting into the physical stadium works nowadays.
Yeah,
because
like that, and then you get given time slots. So there's not too much of a crush at a certain time. Too many people, I guess, gathered all at once outside the stadium or just going inside. So you get given time slots that you can go into the stadium. I think it's like a 15-minute slot in the couple of hours before the match. But for the Hoffenheim game, and I think every home game at the moment, they also say if you arrive kind of before any of the time slots begin, then anybody can come in already. So for last Friday, the kickoff was 8:30 p.m. in Germany, and between 6 and 7 you could go in. We did that because our time slot wasn't until 8 p.m. and the first time being in the stadium for 18 months, we wanted to be inside nice and early and cheering the players onto the pitch and that kind of thing, and not worrying about climbing the stupid number of stairs you have to climb sometimes in such a huge stadium. And rushing to our seats and getting a drink or something to eat, maybe missing the "You'll Never Walk Alone" and things like that. So we went in there a bit earlier. We traveled in from Berlin and had nothing to do in Dortmund anyway.
The old 1 p.m. time slot.
Yeah, pretty much. We went in a little bit earlier, and it wasn't crazy early. Still an hour and a half, an hour before the game, so plenty of time to relax and have a chat with friends that you've not seen for a while at the stadium, and then watch the players come out and warm up and soak everything up after missing out on it for so long.
Yeah, I really have the itch to be in a stadium. I must say, obviously, all my last visits over the years, I used to go to the stadium were obviously all with a press ticket, so I wasn't really among fans, to be honest. But it
was frowned upon if you got up and started shouting things and things like that, I guess.
Yeah, so you don't really have the time to do that when you're sitting there, I'll be honest. But I don't know. There are a lot of fans that are journalists or vice versa, to be honest. So it's not that frowned upon, but let's just say there's no press box capo. If if there were press box Wi-Fi, that already would suffice. But as per usual, there's not enough of that. But since you're sponsored by 1&1, you wouldn't expect anything like that. Anyway, so before I completely go off on a completely irrelevant tangent, Lewis, it was a really interesting game, a 5-goal thriller. All of those 5 goals coming in the second half. Hashtag set pieces was very much trending for a minute or so before Haaland completely evaporated that. But let's start at the beginning, I guess. We had Meunier back in the starting lineup. We had Rafael Guerreiro back in the starting lineup. Emre Can and Mats Hummels, after getting about a 10-minute run out, basically died in Freiburg and are now injured for... I don't know. I think for Hummels it's at least the international break, and for Can it's I think several weeks, 5 to 6 or so. Other than that, I don't think too many changes were made. Right? We had Reina and Bellingham as the number 8s. We had Dahoud as number 6, if you will, and then Marco Reus as the number 10 behind Malen and Haaland. And as far as I recall, since it's Wednesday and this game happened on Friday, I think Dortmund had a better first half than second half in terms of game control and dominance, but there were not that many chances. I think the very first one actually came from Hoffenheim, where was it Kramaric who headed the ball to the post, sort of in contention with Gio Reyna.
Yeah, which, is not the start that I guess anybody was hoping for or looking for. But I agree with you. Like, after that, I thought Dortmund in the first half were, I wouldn't say like brilliant or anything, but really, really good, completely in control pretty much of the game. And it was always just the last pass or the last run. Things weren't quite timed right, or the pass had too much weight on it and ran through to Oliver Baumann in goal. But other than that, I don't think there was too much... Even though there were people in the ground complaining,
as per usual,
because that's what fans do when the team isn't 3 or 4-0 up within 20 minutes. I thought the first half was actually pretty good. I was a little bit surprised seeing some of the players. I think Jude Bellingham after the game saying that they struggled and he thought that they played better in Freiburg. I thought they played a lot better or at least definitely in the first half against Hoffenheim. And it was a little bit unfortunate probably to not create the one big chance that a goal could come from. So, yeah, I agree with you. I thought that the team looked pretty much in control. I thought Donyell Malen looked a lot better. It's only his second start, so it's really early days still. But I thought he looked a lot better and a lot more ready than
he let's be honest, he looked completely awful in Freiburg. And
okay. When you put it like that,
in the two
that was really low
cameos in Frankfurt and the Super Cup, he was also not really doing anything. So the low bar, the bar was very low, but nevertheless, I thought this was way more promising. Really, where you were like, we actually now do see why Dortmund did sign this guy.
Exactly.
Right?
And I thought that was really encouraging. And yeah, it's still as low as the bar was. It's also still really early days, and the guy didn't have any preseason or anything like that either. So I think there was a really promising, encouraging performance against a team that's played really well this season so far as well. So on the whole, I personally went into halftime or like through the first half thinking that it was probably all going to end pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I spent the first half very much like the people around you in the stadium picking on players, just like in private. Obviously, my number one target was Gio Reyna because I thought his decision making in the first half was not that great. I felt like once again he dribbled when he should have passed and vice versa. It's, all these little things, the little details that if you focus too much on it, you actually quite get annoyed by it. But obviously he was then the player to opened the scoring for Dortmund, and it was a really nice goal. Obviously, it was his, I think his 50th Bundesliga match or something like that, and setting a record, obviously, also being the youngest to have 50 games since Christian Pulisic, who else? So, and Moukoko, I assume, will maybe be the next one to break that record.
Is that like a record when it's like the youngest since something that happened like 2 years ago?
Yes, it is, because the Bundesliga is 50? How many years of Bundesliga history do we have? So it's still
58
impressive.
58 now, I think, 59.
Yeah, whatever. Who's counting? Someone, not me. But yeah, I thought the goal was really well taken, and of course the assist came by Jude Bellingham. And Lewis, I think he needs to be a topic of conversation for I don't know how many minutes, but I am more impressed than I thought I was going to be by Jude Bellingham so far this season, because he is not only doing a lot of smart things on the field, especially in the ball winning and distribution department, but now he's also taking on players more than usual. You see a couple of step overs and a player that is not only full of confidence, but actually dominating in areas where I did not anticipate him dominating. Obviously, it's always nice to see a player like this play on TV, but when you're in the stadium, you usually see it even better. I think Shinji Kagawa is the number one player you would rather watch in the stadium than on TV, because what he did, you could see so much better always in the stadium than on TV. So, do you think I have a point here by saying that Jude Bellingham right now is extremely, extremely on his scent?
Yeah, I think we already saw it last year sometimes, but now you're seeing just how crazy the potential is for him. He can do everything. He can do everything you want from a midfielder. He could play further back and kind of start moves and sweep in front of the defense, and he could play this box to box role. He could play further forward and create more chances, and it's kind of crazy that this guy just turned 18, and he just already is just there in one of the biggest clubs in the world, in one of the most competitive leagues in the world, and you can't pick a flaw in his game, really. The way that, like you said, he drives with the ball. There was this great scene in the second half when he fell over towards the corner and fell over, and then just sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. Like he was breakdancing around the ball while on the floor to make sure the defender couldn't get to it, and then got up and turned and beat another defender. And I think ran it into the corner and won a corner in the end from it. And in the stadium, I think more than Shinji Kagawa, who's the kind of player where you kind of, I think in the stadium you can see what he's thinking, because you can see everything else around him, and you could see back then like the cogs ticking and why he made all of the decisions that he made, or what he was seeing, or the spaces that were opening up and why he was moving into them. I think Bellingham in the stadium is a player that you get like maybe not more understanding for the way he's playing, but you get really carried away watching him. Like he takes you with him while he's playing. It's unbelievable, this kind of technical player who can, drive from one end of the pitch to the other, but also has this ability to thunder into tackles, that kind of thing that fans love. And I think him as well as a personality is gonna absolutely love the stadium being firstly now with fans again, and then being full again. I think he's gonna feed off of that so much. But also sometimes when a game's not going so well, especially, and the crowd gets a bit quiet, you need a player to do something to give the fans something to feed off of. And I think he's going to be that player on so many occasions for Dortmund over the next few years.
Yeah, it's really hard to realize that he is one of the players that has never played in front of sold-out Dortmund Stadium. People make a similar case for Thomas Meunier, but of course he has already played with PSG there and had that experience. But Bellingham really, never had this 80,000, people screaming at the top of their lungs sort of.
Yeah, and I think it was a pretty big reason for him to choose to come to Dortmund as well.
You can definitely see how he feeds off it. He also, when he's there, he interacts with the crowd.
I know he went to the stadium at least once, not as a fan, but like when the club was trying to woo him, if you like. And I know that he went to the stadium at least once and it was full. And obviously there was something there that day that helped convince him that he wanted to be on the pitch and not in the stands when there were 80,000 people there. And yeah, it's all of those players. It's such a huge shame for them that they haven't got used to or had the experience of playing in front of a full stadium. I mean, Erling Haaland is so obviously a guy that absolutely loves getting that attention and the adulation. And I think Bellingham, is another one that will completely feed off of that. And who knows, you just mentioned Thomas Meunier, who I think was quite poor again on Friday. There are difficult circumstances with him, especially at the moment with having had a coronavirus and been ill a little bit. But some of these players, we have no idea, and maybe it gives them something extra when they do get to play in front of 80,000 people.
Yeah, Meunier, I think, struggled really in the opening 10-15 minutes or so. I think he got better as the game progressed, to be honest, and that's how you sort of expect it. But boy, for a player that's already not the absolute fan favorite, it doesn't really help. So
no, I don't know if you saw the interview with him that Dortmund put on YouTube. Yeah, and I don't know how you felt about that, but I felt really, I don't know, like I
built a lot of sympathy for him in this interview.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was the most I've seen him speak, I think, really since he joined, and it was the most like you could really identify with the struggle that he's had, especially the last month or so.
Not to go to 10,000 foot view right away, but I feel like Dortmund need to do stuff like that way more often, because usually you get little clips here and there, but this was like how many minutes? 6 or so. It was a coherent interview with actually some interesting questions, and it got very personal, and especially players that are from abroad that you usually don't hear too much from in interviews or whatnot, be it in Kicker or Sportbild or wherever, or Ruhrnachrichten. I really think Dortmund need to, as a club, just get way more access to these players and make a connection to the fans, because otherwise it's going to be always difficult, and we don't have that very often. How many times do you hear actually the thoughts of, say, Rafael Guerreiro? What's going on in his life or in his thoughts, etc. You're not really a witness of that, and I feel like that's just wasted by Dortmund. So
and like you say, as a fan, it gives you something extra, there's something to relate to, and it just, again, like that's a really big conversation, but it just humanizes the players so much, and players that we all watch the games, and sometimes someone might piss you off, and maybe it's the same player 4 weeks in a row that pisses you off, and then you're pissed off the next time just because you see his name in the lineup and not even because he's playing. And I think there's been kind of the situation with Meunier after a disappointing first season. And then you see like some of the abusive stuff online and stuff. I just think, if we saw that human side of the players a little bit more, and then that stuff wouldn't happen so much, because it just reminds us that they're people as well that are going through stuff all the time. Just that all of this money doesn't make all of that shit go away.
Yeah, definitely, you're right. I mean, we really have to put our hopes on Thomas Meunier this season, because Dortmund didn't really do much on the right back position. I think Felix Passlack so far struggled immensely, and I think maybe we'll get more of Wolf, who we can talk about in a second. But I really liked the first half a little bit better, just from the footballing standpoint, because after halftime, and maybe we can focus our attention a little bit, it was actually Hoffenheim right out of the gate that dictated play, and I thought, okay, either Dortmund will sucker punch them or they will just beg for a goal to an extent where they will concede. And sort of both things happened, because when Dortmund did score, it was really against the run of play. If you just saw the first half, not that the lead overall wasn't deserved. I think it was very much deserved, and the goal that Dortmund did create was a really well created goal. I don't know who got the pre-assist, might have been Royce or so. But the very vertical ball by Bellingham, and then the way Gio Reyna managed to slot that home, beating sort of two defenders, and it was a really well taken strike. That was such a nice goal to score, but obviously Lewis taught me through a bit how Dortmund just lost grip of the game around that goal until I think it was Baumgartner scoring in the 61 minute, which was also a very well crafted goal. Don't get me wrong, how Guerrero was pulled out of defense and then the pass played in his back was really nice. But how did Hoffenheim manage to become the better team for a good period in the second half / Dortmund relinquished the dominance they had?
Yeah, I mean, and like you already said, the Hoffenheim being on top didn't just come after Dortmund scoring the first goal, but it was already the 5 minutes before that, since the break at halftime, when Hoffenheim were on top. I think they played a lot more aggressively, and I mean, not aggressively, because in the first half some of the tackles were ridiculous.
Baumgartner's elbow right into Witzel's face in the first minute.
Yeah, in like the first 10 seconds of the game.
Yeah.
Giving Axel Witsel a black eye. Dahoud thought he should have, there should have been a red card, I think, on Dennis Geiger for a tackle against him. In an interview after the game, he said that, that he kind of pulled out of the challenge and it could have been a lot worse if he didn't. I thought Hoffenheim were incredibly rough and aggressive straight out of the blocks. But in the second half, I thought there was a little bit more organization to it, like not playing physically aggressively, but with more intensity. And Dortmund found it really hard suddenly to get out of their own half. It's really hard to keep control of the ball and control of possession, and were also just a bit more open to counterattacks. I think it's still one of those, sort of teething problems with the new coach, that sometimes people are out of position or not quite sure where they should be in a certain moment. And it was something in the first half that Dortmund did pretty well. The second half, and obviously it doesn't help, you're still playing Meunier's first game of the season, Guerrero's first start of the season, Axel Witsel isn't a centre-back, and Manu Akanji is there playing like Superman, trying to hold everything together at the minute. And it was a little bit shaky, a little bit wide open, and I mean, it's twofold. It means that you're open to counterattacks, but it also means that when you have possession, if you're not in the right place and not controlling the space properly, then you leave yourself open to losing the ball and not being able to get out of your own half as well, and much easier to press. So I think it was, like I say, it's not something that gives me like a huge concern going forward. I think it was mostly kind of teething problems under a new coach, and it was disappointing to see it after a good first half. But I mean, Hoffenheim were, for the first 20 minutes of the second half, I think clearly the better side.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's interesting though, because I feel like the momentum switched with the goals, the way Dortmund did behave, because once Baumgartner scored the equalizer, I thought Dortmund very much took over again, then they were pushing and pressing again, like you would expect. Even though he scored the first goal, I totally agreed with Gio Reyna being the first substitute in like the 64th minute for Julian Brandt, because I want to see Julian Brandt very desperately perform well, and the only way he can do that if he's actually on the pitch. So he got a good 25-ish minutes or so. What did you make of his general run out that he got, and how his substitution impacted Dortmund's game to the positive and negative?
I think it was a bit of a classic Julian Brandt performance. I think, like you, I want him to get those chances because I think he's an amazingly talented player, and you saw that in moments. The relaxed nature that he has on the ball. I think, Gio Reyna is always trying to do something with the ball, which is not a bad thing. But like you said, the decision making becomes a bit of a problem.
Well, sometimes he just takes the ball and tries to run through a wall and just doesn't happen.
That's what exactly. Like it's like you don't have to score a goal with every possession, or you don't have to beat two men or come up with a brilliant through ball.
This is going to be the weirdest analogy now on my behalf, but if you play Rocket League, and I don't know if you do, but, there's a certain skill level where you manage to control the ball. And, usually players, especially not the best ones, as soon as they have the ball, they just try to boom it upfield. And when you get a little bit better, you just try to control the ball and not boom it away to the opponent, if you will. And I feel like Gio Reyna sometimes needs to just step on the ball and circulate possession and not try to make a Hollywood play every time he receives the ball. I mean, it's gotten better yet, but I still think there needs to be a little bit more reading of the game. But it's coming. He's still very young.
I think he's young, and I think he gets excited, basically, like a puppy. Or he always wants to make a difference, which is really, really good. But there are two sides of it. You can get the ball and speed the game up, or you can get the ball and slow the game down. And there are right times to do each of them. But he tries to speed the game up every single time that he gets the ball.
I mean, we have players that are on the complete opposite of that spectrum, aka Axel Witsel. Yeah. So. I'm not going to complain.
But every player needs to be able to judge which moment to do which one. And it's it's like you. I also think that's got better already this season. I think that was a really big problem for Reyna last season, and I think he's been a lot more impressive this season so far.
It has to be.
Sorry,
I said he has to be without Jadon Sancho, and
But he's stepped up so far, and I think this position really suits him, playing on the left of the diamond, and there's so much space in the half space with the fullback staying completely wide, and Marco Reus drifting around in front of him helps distract opposition defensive midfielders and drag them away in open spaces. So I think it really suits him. I think it suits him, the teammates that he has around him as well. And it's a really nice way to try and use Reyna and get the best out of him. But Julian Brandt was the right choice because he does also slow the game down. And when you're 1-0 up or 2-1 up, you just need to sometimes calm down and recycle possession and keep the ball and make the other team run around and chase you and don't let them anywhere near you. Whereas Reyna obviously wants to invite pressure so that he can beat it. Obviously the best way to avoid any kind of pressure is just avoid it completely, and then you don't have to worry about it as a problem, and you can stretch the other team more and more across the pitch. Brandt brought a bit more of that. He also, if you ask for the negative side as well, he, looked like Julian Brandt, where he comes on the pitch and then 2 minutes later he kind of isn't sprinting to make a challenge or run into a space that he could occupy, because he's just way too laid back half the time. But, this is kind of just also one of those things that you have to take the flip side of the coin. When you have a player who is really good, you have to take some of their bad parts as well. He just needs to cut them out and make sure they're a little bit less frequent.
Yeah, you know how players are nowadays wearing these almost like sports bras for their tracking. I feel like Julian Brandt needs an electric shocker in there somehow, that he gets zapped every time he's caught napping. I think this is an upgrade that's probably somehow doable. I don't know if it will agree with German labor laws, but nobody.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think
it's only a problem if somebody finds out about it.
Yeah, or he signs a waiver or something that he's okay with it, you know. I think for his own good, sometimes he needs to be zapped a little bit, you know. Because I don't know if you remember, because I do remember quite vividly that when he was on the field, that Terzic almost like individually coached him, you know. Last season, that every five seconds he would hear Jule, auf geht's, weiter Jule and stuff like that.
And yeah, it was probably unfortunate for Brandt that was all going on, obviously, when there was nobody in the stadium as well. Yeah. So this enormous issue was just there for everybody to hear.
Exactly. But nevertheless, quite excited about him. And I really do think that this diamond shape does suit him well as well, and the position he's played. You know, I recently, I don't know if I made it on air or off the air, I feel like in this system, you know, Mario Götze wouldn't be too shabby either. But obviously, those chances are long gone now. But anyway, there's still...
Just about him fitting in and the system working for him. I think we've seen him play wide, or we've seen him play as a number 10 as well at Dortmund. But personally, I always thought his best football came when he played in the kind of in the pivot, the double pivot in front of a back three, which was not really viable when you only have a 4-man defense, and to play Brandt as one of 2 players right in front of them. But then you play with the diamond, it means he's one of 3 midfielders in front of a 4-man defense. So there's that extra protection for those moments, you know, that he doesn't get electrocuted to do some of his defensive work.
Yeah. Now, what I also really like about this shape, and I'm sure that teams will figure it out quite soonish, but for now, I think Dortmund center backs really do manage to find the channel straight to, you know, Akanji to Reina or Witsel to Bellingham. You know, it's gotten already a little bit less since the Frankfurt match, but I still think that actually really helps in Dortmund's build-up, that the channels into midfield and into the center are very much often open due to Dortmund's positioning. And, you know, we have really good center backs when it comes to passing the ball forward. So over the season, I hope this is a theme that continues to happen. I mean, if you have, be it Royce, who also drops back a lot, Reina, Dahoud or Bellingham, and, you know, Brandt and who else will rotate through that midfield, be it Witsel at some point. I really do think that at least in terms of first or second build-up phase, Dortmund are actually quite golden. So this is something I do look forward to as the season progresses. But for now, I think it is also time to talk a bit more about Donyell Malen. I know we've talked about him briefly in the beginning, but let's juxtapose that with Haaland's performance, because except for obviously that furious finish, I don't think Haaland had such a great game. Meanwhile, Malen, I think, was a bit more involved actually, and his positioning and his flow of the game was you know, really cool. And I think maybe it peaked with that back heel tackle where he won possession and then forced a yellow card. But how did you view him in this sort of team chemistry way and his binding to the match?
Yeah, really, really well. Like I already said, I thought it was, and as you said, it's a low bar, but I thought it was a huge improvement on the Freiburg game. I thought that it was a really impressive performance. So we talked about the decision making of Reina, for example, and I thought Malen was making the right choices at the right times, when to dribble, when to pass, when to, you know, maybe have a shot. And he looked like a player who can definitely really fit in with Dortmund and the way we want Dortmund to play, but also more importantly, the way that Marco Rose wants Dortmund to play. You know,
could be the same way.
Well, yeah, it could be. I guess there's a big overlap there anyway. But he has the ability to pick a pass. He's not selfish as a striker, which is always a bit of a bonus. But he also takes people on. He drifts wide, which when you play with the diamond without any wide players is so important to have strikers, or a striker at least, who is going to drift all the way into the channels and be able to beat the fullback or combine with our fullback, our wingback on the overlap. And he did that really well. I thought there was a couple of really good moments in the first half. He combined with Reus and Reina down the left, and Dortmund nearly had a goal out of it. I think Reus actually probably should have had a penalty.
I totally forgot about that moment.
Yeah, and there was it was weird. Like, no one seemed to appeal. Like, oh, it's Marco. He goes down a lot, so it's probably nothing. But yeah, I thought so in the stadium, and then seeing the replays again afterwards, I was really surprised actually that there wasn't a bit more fuss made about that. It looked like a pretty clear penalty to me, and there was a lovely counter attack in the second half, maybe from Hoffenheim. I can't remember if it was a set piece or if they just had possession in our half, but Reus charged away and Haaland dragged one defender to one side, and Reus played it to Marlon, who did really well to get the ball out of his feet and not slow the attack down and force Baumann into a good save at the near post. So, yeah, I was happy with the signing anyway. I think we signed a really talented player, and I think already after 2 games, to see that there's an obvious way that he can fit into the team, and he seems to be sparking those relationships with some of the players already. I think it's really, really promising. It's like, yeah, when you spend quite a bit of money, and especially on an attacking player, there's so much pressure instantly, and people are always waiting for the first goal and the first assist, and those signs that you've signed a player who can win you games. And obviously, he hasn't done that yet, but I think this was the first time that we saw really obvious signs that he can be a player that can win games.
Yeah, what I also really like to see is his shooting technique, because he has a really powerful right-footed shot that you struggle to read. You saw it that he does not really need to swing his leg a lot to get this power. I think both of his shots were to the short corner and Baumann had it covered. But I can see a lot of Bundesliga goalkeepers being taken by surprise by such a shot, or it just, whizzes in. I personally am a sucker for goals that are scored at the near post. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to, especially if we can pull these off against the motion of the keeper or something like that. It's obviously something that Jadon Sancho did excel in the sort of unreadable shot, if you will, that just, was like a snap. And having this characteristic in Marlon as well, and seeing both of those go absolutely on target where he wanted them, it's nice. So, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Daniel Marlon, because, it was only just his first game where we saw some positive glimpses, but when Haaland lost a bit of connection to Dortmund's game for a long part, maybe that's the blame lies also with the players behind him. I thought we should point these things out at least, but
yeah, and especially having lost Jadon Sancho, and even with Jadon Sancho last season, there was times where it was like, if Haaland had an off day, then you didn't see where anything was coming from. So to have an in-form Reus again, and the midfield functioning behind, and to have another striker or forward who looks like they can connect with the team and deliver maybe when Haaland isn't having his best day, is just, it really cuts down on the reliance that we might have to have on him this season.
Yeah, so obviously the big negative here is that Dortmund, after 3 match days, have conceded 6 goals, and 3 of them were all set-piece goals. And after Jude Bellingham, my word, what a strike. Really hit that perfectly. I think it was just a poor clearance, and his shot got a little bit of a deflection on there, but, I think he had to be subbed off a bit later, and then Marius Wolf came on, who, by the way, looked also really decent. It looks like he went to Cologne and actually improved, which I find hard to imagine, but at least the glimpses we've seen for 18, 19 minutes, however long it was, were really good. But obviously, after the Bellingham goal, the same thing happened again, where Dortmund were more on the back foot, and then I don't know, invited the pressure or wanted to counterattack. I'm not quite sure. It looked more of a Favre football, to be honest.
Yeah, just protect what you have instead of killing the other team off.
Yeah, which is weird because you can see, and let's put this in the positive column, because usually teams, once they have gone into the let's protect what we have mode, as you just put it, they find it very hard to flick the switch and push for another goal again. But Dortmund did it twice, basically. And that's obviously very positive, but nevertheless, it also hints at the potential that Dortmund could have in the attacking or overall approach to the game. You know, I appreciate when Dortmund try to circulate possession and control the game and not, you know, go all guns blazing. But in Frankfurt, I praised, or against Frankfurt rather, I praised when they just circulated possession and took a breather. But against Hoffenheim, it was not really like that at all. It's just Hoffenheim having a lot of the ball and probing Dortmund. Obviously nothing you really want to see. And
Gregor Kobel stepping up in a huge way a couple of times.
I was just gonna segue through that. And once again, we
Apologies.
No, fine. You can also just take over, because Kobel has taken over as well, just sweeping off the Yellowwallpod host before he could even get his word out. So, what did you make of this performance?
Yeah, it was huge. He didn't have that many saves to make. I think he's already made, in 3 Bundesliga games, he's already made quite a few really good saves. There was 1 or 2 in Freiburg already. Then, I mean, there's this one save in particular. I think it was Kramaric,
75th
who ran almost half the length of the pitch, almost 1-on-1. And what I really, really liked was that Kobel didn't commit to anything. So often you see the players in these positions and the goalkeeper comes charging out. Like,
no, it was actually the 59th minute. I'm so sorry, because I think it was right before the Baumgartner goal.
Right, yeah, it was. But yeah, I think so often you see keepers come charging out, and it's not the best way to approach the situation. Like, I can see the logic, obviously, why goalkeepers do that. You want to come out and make yourself big and close the angles, but so often it leaves them unprepared for the shot. And something that was always something when I was growing up that you heard was like, don't let the striker make the decision, or don't make the decision for the striker. Sorry, like force the striker to decide. And when a goalkeeper comes out, it puts the striker in a position where, okay, easy. You can go around the goalkeeper. You can chip the goalkeeper. There's space to catch the goalkeeper out with a quick shot. Obviously, as well, being closer to the ball, the keeper has less time to react to a shot. And Kobel looked so relaxed and just confident and prepared, and just stood there and let Kramaric make the decision. Okay, he's not come out, so what am I going to do now? I thought it was really, really great goalkeeping. It was the kind of thing that you see really often from Manuel Neuer, who, when he's not charging out of his goal in those situations to come and intercept a ball, actually stays pretty close to his goal and, within the 6-yard box, to force the striker into the decision like that and give himself as much time as possible to firstly prepare and then react to whatever happens. So I thought that was so impressive, and we saw another good performance. He's pretty relaxed, which I think is really huge for a goalkeeper, to not give stress to the players and not give this impression of being stressed and panicking or anything like that to the other players. And it's been really, really promising so far. Early days, but it's been really promising, and I thought this was probably his best performance so far.
Were you among the people that chanted his name after the save you just described? Because I heard Gregor
Yes,
Kobel
of
chants
course.
going through the stadium.
Yes, absolutely. There was a little bit, but then the ball was still in play, and then I think it went out for a corner or a throw in or something, and then it got really loud. And he completely deserved it. And it does go through your mind as well, like when a player's played in an empty stadium now for almost 2 years, pretty much, or 18 months. Like what that must feel like for him too, to immediately get this kind of adulation, but also it must do enormous things for your confidence at a new club, especially to, I don't know, get the feeling that you're already convincing people of your ability. So yeah, I do. It was a really nice moment to be back in the stadium again and kind of give that and I don't know, kind of thank him for making the save like that.
Yeah, I think it's also really an expression of relief from a lot of Dortmund fans to see competent goalkeeper. It's, I don't want to harp too much on Berkey because I still think he's a really good goalkeeper, but you have more of a feeling that Kobel is a goalkeeper that really can win you a lot of games. And especially the sweeper keeper aspect, which I've raved about in the last episodes already, is huge. And I think, had a couple of situations again against Hoffenheim where he was really far out of his goal and made plays, and it's something you really just love to see, where counterattacks get killed off, and all of a sudden, on your TV screen on the right or left side there, this keeper just pops up and clears the ball, and something you usually as a Dortmund fan are not used to, because neither Berkey nor Hitz do that. So yeah, that's obviously fantastic, and we'll talk about Kobel again in our transfer summer assessment, of course. But so how was it when Dortmund scored the third? I'll just bluntly ask. I can play the clip again if you want, because it's so nice to listen to.
Marco Reus. Haaland stays on his feet. What a chance for Wolf! Lukaku! Haaland! He's a cheat code! 3-2!
I mean, the way he picked his place, Haaland, because the defender easily could have blocked it, and just completely lashed it into the goal. So how was that, watching it all unfold from the north stand? So right, I think you had a really good angle on the flight of the ball.
Yeah, pretty much more or less behind, I guess, a bit more central to where, for like the angle, I guess, being right behind the ball where he shot. But yeah, really clear view of what was going on. I guess it's just one of those moments as a fan, right, where you just have pure relief. And I remember thinking and talking with people after the game and just thinking, when we conceded, which, by the way, which wasn't only, a classic sad pieces, but also like the exact same fucking goal that we let in from a corner all the time, with a near post flick on and then a guy is free at the back post. And even from before Marco Rosa, constantly that exact same corner. Cone last season, I remember, I think really late in the game, and Frankfurt a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, 2 in one game, right?
Yeah.
And Frankfurt, their second goal a couple of weeks ago was exactly the same. It's like this exact same way of conceding, not even keep conceding from corners, but it's this exact same way of conceding from a corner over and over again, which is so infuriating. And then, I just remember thinking, I think it was right after when they were kicking off, that the announcement was for 4 or 5 minutes added time, and I just remember thinking, that we'll get a chance. There will be one chance in that 4 or 5 minutes. There were actually 2
chances. Well, if you count the goal, the chances around the goal, there were 4. Because Wolf had the chance, Moukoko had the chance, and Haaland scored, and then Marco Reus had another really glaring chance, which he needs to score because I predicted the game to finish 4-2. Jesus Christ, Marco, why can't you aim? Why? But yeah.
Well, yeah. So I thought we would get the chance, and then there was the save from Wolf, and I thought, right, that's not great. And then it felt, but you could see it was falling to Moukoko. And then that was, I thought he did really well to get it right towards the bottom corner, and Baumann made a great save. And then you're just thinking to yourself,
of course he was in the Who Scored Team of the Week, frickin' Baumann. Of course he was.
Obviously. And then you just think to yourself, well, there it was. That was the fucking chance that I was thinking we were going to get. And Haaland just kind of, muscled his way into it. And as you said, the way he picked his spot was brilliant. Like, that's not an accident. He could have hit that anywhere. He knows that the defender's there. He knows his best. Baumann's on the floor. His best chance is to hit it high. My instant reaction when he hit it was like, fuck, he's managed to put it over. Like, I just saw the trajectory of the ball and was absolutely terrified and certain that he'd managed to, from 3 meters out, smash it over the bar.
It's hilarious because at the pace the ball is being hit, it's maybe a tenth of a second it's actually flying, but the human brain is capable of thinking like 50 thoughts.
Incredible. Yeah. It's really incredible when you actually think that, like you say, how quickly it happened, but the thoughts that we all have while the process is happening, it's absolutely insane. And also it's damn impatient. I wish my brain could just let me wait, that tenth of a second, so I could just celebrate and not have the stress of thinking that it went over the bar for,
I wasn't sure the entire time whether Haaland came because he was in an offside position before, whether he made it back in time. That was my big concern.
It didn't even cross my mind until, you're screaming in celebration, hugging people or whatever, and then you turn around and you realize they didn't kick off yet, which
how long did that take? I feel like it took forever.
Yeah, I don't even think it was that long. It was way quicker than the offside goal against Frankfurt that was given, I think. But it felt like it took ages. And then it's when you're in a Bundesliga stadium nowadays and you celebrate a goal and then you realize they haven't kicked off yet, then obviously you're just completely stressed and worrying that they're going to steal that moment from you. So thankfully, it didn't happen. Thankfully, we did win, and it counted. And it was a pretty nice way to start the weekend, no?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Friday wins because that always gives you the permission to watch the rest of the Bundesliga match day, if you will. And I must say, there were some really great games on the recent match day. We had, for example, Stuttgart losing to Freiburg, where all the 5 goals came in the first half, actually. And that sort of surprised me. We had, Freiburg actually managing to hold off Stuttgart for the entire second half. No surprise by Mainz beating 3-0. The most comical goals, I guess, were scored in Augsburg.
They had a cactus competition.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you had the first really nice lob, then you had this deflected header. But I still actually thought that the first Augsburg goal and the only Augsburg goal was even funnier because of the poor first touch and then the ball sort of going through Hadeki's legs. And
it was like everything was in slow motion, and as everybody's scrambling towards it, that was great. Yeah, and as you say, when you can sit down and just enjoy that and not really care what happens because we won anyway, and you're not sitting there thinking, oh man, now of course Bayern punished our defeat, or Leverkusen or Wolfsburg or whoever punished us not winning. It's just a really nice feeling to relax and watch whatever happens at the weekend and laugh at whoever doesn't have any luck, and none of it's your problem.
Yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy also Cologne against Bochum. I thought it was a really good game, especially because the goals came really late, and after Cologne scored their second, Bochum, I think they had like 4 minutes of stoppage time, but Bochum played like they were still 100% getting a point out of it, and they did have a goal, and then I think one more chance. So Bochum with the never say die mentality. That's a mental note I'll put somewhere for the Bochum game. Obviously, Bayern Roding Berlin was really boring and I didn't watch that game. Union Berlin against Gladbach also hardly watched because I was watching Formula 1 not racing in Spa because it was raining, and I also couldn't bother to watch.
You chose to watch cars not race against each other instead of Union Gladbach.
Yes. Well, I did watch Union Gladbach for 4 minutes, and I did watch the Avoni goal live, where Kruse and Avoni combined against 3 Gladbach defenders, and it was a beautiful goal. But yeah, I also didn't watch Wolfsburg against Leipzig because I was doing other stuff. I don't even remember what it was. But that's
a good enough reason to not watch those two teams.
I don't know. Even if it was the battle for the for first place on match day 3, I just could not really care. But I'm okay with the outcome. Even though I think I very loudly proclaimed that Wolfsburg were not to worry about and that they're going to be shambles under Mark van Bommel and Fronzek. But here they are, top of the league. So yeah, whatever. But every time Leipzig loses, I think it's also a very good time. So yeah, obviously Dortmund will play after the international break against Bayer Leverkusen, which I assume will be the automatic loss for Dortmund since Leverkusen are in really good form and Dortmund play away from home. And it's after the international break where Dortmund always struggles. So anyway, but we'll preview that game next week. Now, Lewis, I think quickly it is time for us to talk about the Champions League draw, and Dortmund got a really nice group with Sporting from pot 1, and then you have Ajax and Besiktas. Should be fun. Also, Dortmund obviously must finish in the top 2. Do you think Dortmund are the favorites to win this group, or do you think that Sporting or Ajax are actually formidable enough to give Dortmund some trouble?
Yeah, I would say Ajax in particular, just with the pedigree that they've had in Europe for the last few years again now, almost throwing back to the old days. And they obviously tend to dominate the Eredivisie. I think in Erik ten Hag, they have a really good coach, and they just have a really talented team too. So I think there will be 2 really interesting games against Ajax. I think Sporting are a good team as well. They won the Portuguese league for the first time in something like 15 years last season. And yeah, but they, I think, really solid team. They just sold the star teenage left wing back to PSG on deadline day, so maybe that helps weaken them a little bit. It will be a huge disappointment, right, if Dortmund didn't go through this group and maybe even go through as the winners.
Yeah, I don't know. I rate Ajax really highly. I don't know what to make of Sporting. I really don't know what to make of Besiktas. But fear not, we will have expertise coming to help us out there. So, but just a general reaction, I think there have been tougher groups. Bayern, for example, have to play against Barcelona. So that should be fun. But yeah, obviously it's broke ass Barcelona right now. So I don't know if they even still have a good team by then, or whether all the remaining good players will be impounded. Who knows? But yeah, I'm looking forward to this Champions League. I think it will be very exciting, and I think it will be very dramatic. I know Dortmund will not just, cruise through their group stage, because they just never do. There will always be some excitement. So yeah, that's it with the group stage, because we are already an hour in and we still have to talk about the transfer window. So let's talk about the players that Dortmund lost. I don't know, I've the Transfermarkt thingy open. I don't know if Emanuel Ferrey really counts, because he never was a first team player. Lukas Piszczek, probably one of the biggest losses, just because how tremendous he was on the field, and obviously also off the pitch. Sergio Gomez signed for Anderlecht, and Jeremy Toljan with Sassuolo, but neither of those played a role last season. Thomas Delaney of the Sevilla for a reported fee of 6 million. Leonardo Baglieri also permanently signed for Olympique Marseille, but obviously also didn't play a role last season. And then, of course, 85 million euros plus bonuses. Jadon Sancho going to Manchester United. So, considering what kind of summer Dortmund had, this is a very short list. What do you make of the transfer window in terms of Dortmund that players sold or got rid of?
Yeah, I think all of those names were to be expected pretty much. There were no surprises there, which, is nice when you have to build and plan for your squad building. Lucas Piszczek is, as a person and a player, going to be an enormous loss. There's an enormous hole at right back, which we already kind of touched on. Yeah, Piszczek is 36 years old, came into the team last year and was brilliant. And not just brilliant by the standards of how badly other players had played at right back. He looked like Lucas Piszczek 5 years ago. I don't really understand how it happened. And I think I'm happy for him that he got what he wanted. I'm kind of disappointed as a fan that he maybe didn't decide late last season, maybe I could do one more year in Dortmund, because that would have been great for all of us, and to give him a real goodbye as well at the end of this season would have been special, because he obviously missed out on that last year. I'm sure he'll be back to sort of receive that as soon as possible. But there was not a big surprise. Thomas Delaney with 1 year left on his contract. I think maybe people will be a bit disappointed by 6 million euros only, but I don't find it that surprising. It was not like a situation where loads of clubs were bidding for him, and we were in a pretty weak position with 1 year left on his contract. And yeah, I mean, I don't see him fitting into this team anyway. I think the 2 8s in the diamond are really offensive players, and players who can dribble and create chances and get in the box and threaten, like we've already seen and spoken about with Reina and Bellingham. And then I think Delaney just doesn't have the ability in the build-up play to play the role Dahoud is playing at the moment, and that Witsel will play, I'm sure, at some point. So that wasn't a big surprise and not too much of a disappointment. Again, a big miss as a person, I would say. And then there's Jadon Sancho, who obviously as a footballer is practically irreplaceable. But we held on to him for 1 extra year, kind of, compared to what it could have been. So that 1 extra year brought us the Pokal and a place in the Champions League this season, thanks to his performances after sort of December or January this year. And then we still got 85 million euros for him or so. So I think it kind of was one of those things that was always going to happen and has worked out pretty well for everybody.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we got the chance to enjoy his talents for pretty much as long as humanly possible, considering the level he was playing on when he left. So that was really positive. Obviously, wouldn't it be amazing if Dortmund had the capability to retain such a player really on the long term, like Bayern, say, Serge Gnabry or whatnot, who will probably play there for 5-6 years from now on, or Robert Lewandowski, etc. But sadly, this is not reality. Reality is also that there are a lot of players that Dortmund did not sell. And I think this is sort of the biggest problem Dortmund have right now, that their wage bill is quite bloated. Obviously, Roman Bürki, most prominent, I guess, of players that did not leave. I don't know what he will do this season, whether he will assume the number 2 spots in front of Marvin Hitz, or whether he will just hang around on the stands. The fact that Roman Bürki is still around at Dortmund, at least until the winter transfer market, always gives me a little knot in the stomach, because it would be classic stories that only football writes if Gregor Kobel goes down with an injury and all of a sudden Bürki has to perform again. Who knows? I don't know. I don't want to write the devil on the wall, so to speak, but it's obviously rather unfortunate that Dortmund could not manage to get his name off the wage bill. There were reports of a late offer from FC Basel, who might have taken him out on loan, but I assume that Burki makes some good money in Dortmund. I think between 5 and 6 million per year, which doesn't put him at the very top of Dortmund's wage bill, but it's a sizable amount of money you would like to spend elsewhere. Other players that Dortmund might have wanted to sell.
Could I ask you, just like on that Burki situation, how much it worries you, or what you think of the situation where they gave both Burki and Hitz a new contract within the last like 12 months, and then also went and signed a new goalkeeper as well?
Well, I'll be honest. I'm very much relaxed about Dortmund's goalkeeping situation now that Dortmund have signed Kobel. But I already thought that at the time when Dortmund did extend Burki's contract, that it was not the smartest play to make. I'll be honest. I always thought that this is a position Dortmund needed to improve, and it was always quite clear that Roman Burki is a good goalkeeper, but he's not Dortmund material. Just never really developed into that goalkeeper that Dortmund were hoping. So I'm quite worried that right now he's just taking away resources that Dortmund desperately need, and I think the blame wholly lays with Michael Zorc and the decision making, because I thought that this contract extension was quite needless, and I assume he still got a raise in that somehow too. And now it's obviously not getting easier for other clubs to sign him. I think he wants to play Champions League football somewhere and be the number one goalkeeper, but I just struggle to see a market for him,
Yep.
So I don't know how you see it, but I think his contract runs out in 2023. Who knows how long he'll hold on to that.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out in January at the earliest, if he's just fed up of not playing any football, and maybe somebody really needs a goalkeeper somewhere. But like you say, the wages is so prohibitive when it comes to get rid of not just him, but a few of the players Dortmund tried and failed to get rid of this summer.
Yeah, it's really annoying. Dortmund are in a category of clubs where your wage bill is not big enough to retain the biggest assets that you have, but it's also so big that if you have, say, mediocre players you want to get rid of, that you pay these players such an amount of money that other clubs from your own league or around really do struggle to sort of take on these players, and either these players need to take a big pay cut or they will just stay on. Basically something that Dahoud did for 4 or 5 years, but now in his case it actually turned out as a positive, but so often it does not. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if I think you saw that quote from the agent of Marius Wolf, which just kind of sums up that situation, right? Saying that you can't give up a contract in Dortmund because it will finance you for your entire life, pretty much. I mean, that's exactly that situation that you just described. The club has put themselves in a really difficult position where if you want to sign a guy like Roman Burki or Marius Wolf from decent Bundesliga clubs, but obviously coming to Dortmund, they expect a wage increase, but then the wage is too much for any decent Bundesliga club outside of maybe the Champions League teams to be able to offer that player a similar contract. You would put them kind of in the bracket with the highest paid players or anyone else in the league. So yeah, I think it's a difficult situation to juggle, but then making mistakes in player recruitment becomes costly, not just with the transfer fee, but then you get stuck with a player for a number of years, bleeding more and more millions out of the club as well.
Yeah, there certainly is a knock-on effect. For sure, and I think we can praise Michael Zorc in so many ways, but I also think there have been some absolute duds where Dortmund really do pay a lot of money. Marius Wolf, who could have a very positive impact this season, it's still too soon to say, but I think he is also on a wage, and where you just don't really know why in the first place he got offered that much. Because I think Wolf and Schulz both, for example, are players that are not necessarily Dortmund material. I just don't think they have the technical capability to compete at that level. And they're good backups, but of course Schulz was signed for 25 million. And I think in Wolf's case, it was some sort of clause that Dortmund triggered for 10 million or so. But it's still not the best transfer policy. I don't know. I feel like Zorc really struggles in recruiting like players that are not at the highest level, but just mid-tier squad players where Dortmund often overpay and especially experienced Bundesliga players that make sort of almost a lateral move. Dortmund just often screw up. I mean, Delaney, for example, was one of the few exceptions, but even he is not 100% liked among Dortmund fans. I think a lot of Dortmund fans were quite critical of him as well. Anyway, this to me really is the biggest downside of the transfer market, that in the end Dortmund, I think, wanted to do a great many things, but just couldn't because of previous mistakes. Right? I think this is sort of my assessment. Yep. If we give a rating to this transfer window, I don't know. I'm somewhere between 4 out of 10 and 5 out of 10, somewhere in between, like 4.5 out of 10 maybe, because it's a knock-on effect of previous things that maybe prevented another winger. I don't know what was going on with the whole Hudson-Odoi thing. No idea. Whether Tuchel actually blocked the transfer, which I find quite credible, or not. But Dortmund were linked with a lot of players, also Madueke, for example. And I would have appreciated another winger that can dribble with the ball. I think Dortmund do need that. And So there are a certain issue, a couple of issues did not address, but of course.
Do you think maybe that wasn't so much of a priority because we're going to play with a diamond, or maybe with the back three sometimes, possibly? I don't know.
I think the
and
priority
basically just
lowered,
play without wingers, or do you think we're going to play without wingers because we don't have any wingers?
I just believe that no matter which system you play, you always need to have wingers that can beat other players 1v1. And if you have a lack of that in your squad, and if you're aiming for a title or whatnot, which Dortmund maybe, possibly, potentially are, I don't know. But if you want to be sort of the top brass in a top European league, I absolutely think you need a player like that. And Dortmund just don't have this type of player right now to the amount where it's necessary. I think after losing Jadon Sancho, this is one particular area that has not been addressed really, and I think will bite Dortmund quite often. That's just, obviously playing in the 4-4-2 with a diamond may alleviate that, but nevertheless, I still think that sometimes in a dull game, somewhere in the middle of the season, you just need a spark of individual skill to win you games, and wingers with 1v1 skills often do that. So I would have appreciated another player like that, but it's obviously not feasible right now. I think in a non-pandemic year, easily Dortmund would have A, gotten more for Sancho, and B, had more players to invest, and also there would have been more of a market for players they wanted to get rid of. So that always needs to be factored in, right? But nevertheless, I get the point of everyone saying, well, Dortmund maybe don't need that winger per se. I really harshly disagree with that notion.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if you kind of thought, we would play without wingers because we don't have wingers, or we don't have wingers because we're going to play without them. I do agree with you. Like, it's probably, now that we signed a goalkeeper and upgraded really in that position, and Akanji has had such a strong 12 months or so, I think there's still, obviously they made the temporary solution with Pongracic at centre back, but that was a big question mark. And right back, I have sympathy for them not signing someone, because I suspect they don't want anybody to get in the way of Mathieu Morey when he returns, and someone to kind of block his path to taking that spot or having the chance to earn that spot. And then when you kind of take all of those things into account, then the winger is the big thing that's missing from the squad. A squad that last season, I think Ansgar Knauf is a good player, but I think he's also not really ready to play much in the Bundesliga yet. And even then, in a couple of appearances last season, we saw what a difference it can make to have that one-on-one player that you're talking about, even if they aren't maybe the top level or completely fulfilling their potential.
Just an explosive player you can
just
bring on in the last 20
Exactly.
minutes can make all the difference. You're absolutely right. I think, wasn't it against Stuttgart or so, where this assist away?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it just needs one moment to win you those games sometimes, and those are typically the kind of players that deliver that one moment. I think, like you, that we might see Marius Wolf at right back as a possible option for that position, and to solve that issue of not having maybe a quick 1v1 kind of player. But obviously, if we're using him there, then it proves just even more that we really could be doing with someone extra who can play on the flanks and offer that.
Yeah, this is the problem with Marius Wolf. He can be a good stopgap player, but he's not good enough technically to be a winger for Dortmund. Yes, he impressed against Hoffenheim in the run out he had, but I think in the long term, there are much better players with much better first touch than Marius Wolf. Obviously, I appreciate his work rate and the physicality he brings, so it's not like he is completely useless. I don't want to go that far, but if you start thinking about, okay, we can play him as a winger, we can play him as a fullback, to me he is not the best option as a right back. He might be an upgrade over Paslak if Paslak is struggling as he was, but that doesn't say much to me. On the other hand, I'm right now, I'm happy he's there due to the injury malaise that Dortmund do have, with Emre Can being out and whatnot. Same with Ansgar Knauf. Obviously, I think we'll see more of him this season as well, and maybe he'll alleviate my winger pain. I don't know. But
only a little bit.
Only a little bit. I also don't really know what we'll make with Khanier this season. No idea. So in that regard, it's really disappointing. But I am truly excited about Daniel Mahlen, and I'm even more excited about Gregor Kobel. I teased this a little bit, but I just wanted to say this again. I think that Dortmund are set with Kobel for the next, 5 to 6 years, unless he plays so well that another club just poaches him from Dortmund to, I don't know, a club with money. So it's not going to be Barcelona, at least. But I don't know about you, Lewis, but my big idol growing up was, of course, Stefan Klos, and Jens Lehmann was also tremendous fun. And Roman Weidenfeller also became a world-class goalkeeper. So I think Dortmund are a club that absolutely need to have a world-class goalkeeper, or goalkeeper that is at least way above average. And I do believe that Gregor Kobel is that guy. Maybe he'll have the yips all of a sudden and just makes mistake after mistake after mistake, and I'll have to revise this remark now, but I just don't have that notion for now. And I'm super excited about him because I think he will tremendously balance Dortmund's team, make them better in the long term, and really help with winning games and maybe even championships. Who knows? So that's my take on Gregor Kobel. So however shit this transfer window was in the larger context, I think having Gregor Kobel in particular is something I will always look back to for things that made a really big positive difference for Dortmund. So having him there is great. Full stop.
I really, it's refreshing to hear this level of optimism from you. So yeah. I'm just sitting back and enjoying that.
I think it's warranted. I've been wrong many times and I will be wrong again, but I think this time I'm correct. So
that's the problem. You never know when you're going to be wrong.
I know. That's the beauty of it. But yeah, Marian Pongracic is obviously the stopgap player. You know, he was a roster player in Wolfsburg, and I don't know. I think it's an understandable thing because, you know, he and Rose go back to the Salzburg days, and you know, he had really stiff competition with Lacroix in Wolfsburg. So I don't really have much of an opinion on him other than that I have a hunch that Dortmund will rely on him quite heavily this season, and is a much better option than Witzel in the center-back position because he actually is a trained and learned center-back. Think about that. So I think Dortmund have an option to buy for like 10 million. So if it works out, grand. If not, whatever. It's Wolfsburg's problem. So yeah, I'm just hoping that he will be somewhat formidable and head Dortmund out in the center back position. I only really remember him playing against Dortmund, where he was not too shabby, to be honest. But it's also not a standout player by any means. So, you know, it's for last minute panic buy. I think that's about as good as it gets. You know, there were rumors about Diego Dalot from Manchester United, former AC Milan right back. Obviously, this would have been more spectacular, if you will, but also more unrealistic. You know, the Dalot and Hudson-Odoi rumors I never really took seriously because I thought that was...
And way more expensive as well, even just on loan,
Yes.
just to pay the wages of players at those clubs. And this, yeah, I like this deal because it's just, in terms of a last minute deal, like the worry, I guess, is always, firstly, that you're going to buy a terrible player, but also that you're going to waste a load of money. But to manage to do it on loan is pretty nice. And also a player who played for Marco Rose before, so knows exactly what's going to be expected of him. And also the coach already knows exactly what he can expect from the player. Hopefully just makes the entire transition a bit smoother for everybody.
Yeah, I think he's playing for the Croatian national team, but he was born in Landshut. So I guess he has dual citizenship. Must have. So, yeah. You know, who knows? Well, let's wait and see a couple of months. I said previously that I do have the fear that Hummels in particular will struggle tremendously with injuries, and who knows what will happen with Zagadou. So I think this is a very much needed reinforcement, and I'm happy Dortmund did make this transfer, even though it obviously reeks of desperation because it just is that.
But we all know that's what I mean. If you're going to make a desperate transfer, at least make it a cheap one.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, Lewis, I think I rated the transfer window with the number. What would you give this summer transfer window?
Better. I think better than you. I think I would give it a 5 or a 6.
Okay.
Like, I think if you consider that the problems getting rid of the guys like Burki and Wolf were problems that existed because of previous decisions and not decisions made this summer, then maybe you give that a little bit more leeway.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like going back to previous ratings that I first of all didn't give and then like take off a number. So it's just gonna be
I'm just trying to add the context, I guess. Yeah, it looks bad, but I don't know if they could have, like you said, the pandemic market and clubs not having as much money and empty stadiums. I don't know what they could have done differently to get rid of some of the extra players they couldn't get rid of. I'm pretty happy with Kobo, and I'm optimistic. Like maybe not as optimistic as you sounded, but I'm pretty optimistic. And I think it's always nice to have a goalkeeper where you're pretty convinced that that's going to be the goalkeeper for a number of years. And I am, like you. I think it's the worst position to have those question marks about. It leads to so much uncertainty. And, you know, it's not a position where you get rotation or anything like that. So,
you know why I'm maybe so optimistic? It might just be my own psychology, because I feel less jittery, less panicky when the ball goes into that area of the pitch. Especially the
But I think that's a
keeper
pretty-
thing. It just takes away so much nervousness and stress just for me as a viewer that I'm just so
I think
excited.
that's a good way of judging a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it
Or,
does.
Like,
It
how
totally
nervous
does.
do they make you?
But
You know?
just having a
Um,
better fan experience, I think, just makes this transfer better.
Yeah, completely. And I'm really happy about Donyell Malen as well. I think it's a new transfer and an attacking player and different movements and different teammates, and it can take a while for those things to click. But I think when they do click, then we've got a player that everybody's going to absolutely love watching.
You know what my
and who's
favorite
gonna
aspect
score
about
a lot of
Donyell
goals.
Malen's transfer actually is that he was
No,
not
go
born
on.
in the 2000s. That he's already 22 years old. Yeah, but I'm just saying. So Dortmund will have him, and when he's 23, 24, 25, and not the youngest anymore. So my expectation to that extent is that he will actually be a more consistent player. Obviously, there is this reputation that he whiffs a lot of chances, but nevertheless, I do feel like that a lot of learning has already been done in his regard, and we get more of a peak performance out of Donyell Malen that we might have out of other players. Say, for example, Christian Pulisic, who, since he left Dortmund, I think improved still tremendously and is now a much better player than he ever was for Dortmund. I know that pains you, especially since you're an Arsenal fan and he's playing for Chelsea. But nevertheless, I still feel like it's fair to make that point. So I'm hoping that we'll get this development from Malen more at Dortmund than say at PSV.
Yeah, and we don't have to suffer those growing pains as much.
Exactly.
As with some of the other players that we've signed. I think that's true. And I think it's really exciting. I think he's going to fit in really well. I think he's going to contribute to a lot of goals. I would have really liked if we could have signed, a right back, a winger, a centre back. But I think the situations were probably just a bit tricky in each of those positions, especially when you see that we have Mounier on a huge wage, and then what do you do when Murray is eventually fit again if you go and spend loads of money on a right back, which I guess is why they were looking for loan solutions. And I'm just glad that they managed to sign some kind of centre back in the end, after worrying that the failure to sell a guy like Marius Wolf would maybe prevent us from having anybody come into the squad after Kobo and Malen. So I'm happy that we've got a centre back like you, that he's not Axel Witsel playing centre back, but we actually have a guy who is just a centre back, and maybe not the guy that anybody would have chosen, but it's worked out pretty well for Dortmund before. Some pretty surprising left field announcements and guys that we haven't really seen or heard of.
I mean, obviously, this transfer window also was a investment into the future. Dortmund did sign Samuela Koulibaly and Abdoulaye Kamara. Koulibaly is the center back, who I think is still nursing an injury, and Kamara is a defensive midfielder. They're both from PSG's under 19 joining Dortmund. So obviously, I very much doubt that Dortmund will see those 17 and 16 years old at any point this season. But going forward, they could also play a big role, and then I might have to go back and mark up this transfer window a bit higher. But you just said it. Dortmund had several issues to address. And maybe the goalkeeper one was not the most pressing issue to address. And the fact that despite the fact that they, could have more invested into a winger or a right back or what have you, that they still said, okay, this is the time to pull the trigger on Kobel and just sign him, despite many other issues. I'm actually quite proud of that decision because, like I just said, I really do think in the long term this will be huge, while other things I think can be corrected quite easily. And finding a good goalkeeper for the long term is not that easy. I don't think the goalkeeper market is what it was when the likes of Ter Stegen, Leno, and Neuer came through the ranks. So it's I don't know. So I'm just happy with this development overall, and with that I feel like we can also knock it on the head. Unless you have any final thoughts.
No, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and you may now plug yourself if you have any things to plug that people should subscribe, follow, etc.
You can follow me on Twitter at LGAmbrose, and seeing as Stefan just mentioned subscriptions, I just started during this new season. I thought I would write something once per week about something different in German football every week. So Bundesliga, national team, Zweite Bundesliga, whatever's interesting, an interesting story or player or anything like that. So you can find that on the pinned tweet on my Twitter profile at the moment.
Yeah, might just tell the link for people that don't have Twitter or go there.
Oh yeah, well then I need to remember though what it's called, because I just send people the link. Fußballinenglish.substack.com.
Wonderful. Yes, you can follow me as always at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can follow all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to subscribe to our Patreon, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall. And of course, you can subscribe to the podcast itself on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, etc. Of course, as always, thank you very much for supporting us financially, you all out there. And of course, thank you again for coming on with me, Lewis. And lastly, thank you for listening, and goodbye.